Hey you! Have you ever dreamt of waterboarding innocent people, overthrowing democratically elected governments, or maybe even carrying out drone strikes and getting away with it? If the answer is yes, then the CIA must be the job of your dreams. Considering that everybody who wants to work for the CIA has to undergo an extremely anal recruitment process in which competition is fierce, if you have ever wanted to work at Langley, you might want to obtain some extra qualifications. One of the best ways to do that is to master a language from the CIA's so-called mission-critical languages list. What are the most looked after languages at one of the world's best intelligence agencies? In this video, I did solely for the purpose of once again trying to fill my life with meaningless projects so that I can forget that all in all it is pointless. You will find out because you didn't know it already, because your ass is too lazy to do some actual research on your own. Side note, the languages aren't listed in any particular order. Number 1. Turkish. Turkey has always been a big of a deal due to its geographical position. Turkey is kind of like K-pop. It was huge in the past, then everybody forgot about it for some time, after which it grew again. In the last years, the political situation of Turkey has been getting trickier and trickier. Because of its president extending his authority to unseen before levels and attempted overthrow of the government, suppressing the Kurdish minority as well as Turkey's increasing role in the Syrian conflict, the USA prefers to keep an eye on the actions of Istanbul. Even more so that Turkey has been flirting with Russia lately. In the last few years, several meetings of the Russian and Turkish heads of state have taken place. But the part most detrimental to America's interest in Turkey is Turkey purchasing Russian arms, missiles to be more specific, rather than the American ones. Such flirting between the Tsar and Sultan might end up seriously harming the NATO alliance, as Turkey is the second strongest army in the alliance. So grab your kebab and go execute some Armenians and later deny anything happened just to get a taste of the local culture. Number 2. Arabic. Arabic is particularly useful because of America's entanglement in the Middle Eastern clusterfuck. Just to give an example of its usefulness, in the show Homeland, which covers the work of the CIA, basically every character speaks Arabic, as these are the lands where most of the sweet dinosaur juice, known also as oil, is located. However, its significance is going to diminish in the future, due to the US rolling back from Iraq, due to the ISIS being virtually in shambles after being gangbanged by literally everybody, as well as the diminishment of the menace of terrorist attacks and the CIA shifting its focus to pure state rivalry, or however is it that you pronounce it. Despite being the language of K-pop and several shitty Netflix shows, which I absolutely detest thanks to my lovely sister, Korean remains a relevant language in intelligence. With the increasing nuclear threat from North Korea's side, the US government prefers to stay vigilant regarding the actions of John McCain's favorite crazy fat kid. Everybody was reminded of North Korea's existence after it hacked Sony's vulnerable data after it released its movie called The Interview, which told a story of an assassination plot carried out against the North Korean leader. But the worst threat from North Korea is still its technological superiority, demonstrated by the top-notch quality of its governmental websites. Just beautiful, aren't they? Seriously, the website of my primary school looks better than the one of a state with 25 million inhabitants. Kurdish. The Kurds are one of the largest nationalities which do not have a state. After World War I, when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Kurds were supposed to receive a country of their own. However, because of a certain badass alcoholic Francophile called Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, his surnames in Turkish mean excellent and the father of Turks, by the way, started the Turkish War of Independence because he didn't like the harsh conditions imposed on Turkey after it losing World War I. Turkey managed to win the conflict, after which it decided not to respect the treaty which obliged it to seize a great chunk of its territory to the Kurdish state, among others. The Kurds have been aiming for liberty ever since. The Kurds have had a significant role in dismantling the Islamic State and received plenty of arms from the Americans. However, with the USA slowly rolling back from these regions, the Kurds have been left alone by their supposed ally to be slaughtered by Turkey. The Kurds from Iraq and Syria have been proven to supply the American weapons to their brother separatist movements inside of Turkey. This caused a diplomatic standoff between America and Turkey. Turkey unexpectedly invaded the parts of Syria inhabited by the Kurds, which dazzled the international community. Due to this nation's independence being such a bone of contention, the Americans prefer to maintain surveillance in this region. Indonesian. Indonesia used to be just like this lady, regardless of whether it were the British, the Japanese, or the Dutch. In the past, it got constantly gangbanged. Now, however, with its loads of natural resources and a booming economy, Indonesia is striving to join the cool kids club. Thanks to its being a shitload of islands bordering with Southeast Asia and Australia, Indonesia is in the middle of several crucial commercial routes and is also located in the vicinity of the South China Sea, which is one of the most contested and resource-opulent regions in the world. Notwithstanding that, Indonesia is also key in China's plan to construct a safety net that would cut off India, one of America's strategical allies, from the outside world should any conflict erupt. Because of its ever-increasing power on the international stage, the US government needs people who will help it to keep an eye on this severely underrated country. Russian. This is probably one of the most obvious languages on that list. Ever since the beginning of the Cold War, America and Russia are perceived as natural enemies. Despite America's victory in the Cold War, Russia still poses a threat to the United States of America. It became obvious to everybody that Russia's imperial ambition is not gone when Russia seized control of large swaths of Georgia in 2008. With the 2014 annexation of the Crimean Peninsula and supporting separatist movements in the east of Ukraine because of its almost joining the American sphere of influence and protecting the Russian-speaking population, heavy sanctions have been imposed on the Russian Federation. However, Russia didn't stop its relentless pursuit of being douchebags to America. In the Syria conflict, the Russians provide military aid to the side opposing the one supported by the USA, which means that the two sides are basically entangled in a proxy war. Simultaneously, Russia aids the socialist government of Venezuela, which because of the USA is ostracized in the international community. Except for that, Russia is accused of undermining the American democratic process by interfering in the 2016 presidential election. Hopefully the Russian will keep being the evil guys, because if not them, who the hell is going to be the bad guys in the movies? Chinese. China has always been a troubled country. China is a sleeping lion, Napoleon once warned. Let her sleep, for when she wakes she will shake the world. Before the Opium Wars, China was an exceptionally unstable empire that had to deal with several civil wars. It was a period of isolation, in the purest sense of that word. After getting its ass kicked by Britain time and again, because of its banning the entrance of British drugs onto their country, a period of submission and humiliation started for China. In fact, it was like a sock that a stereotypical adolescent beat his clown into. However, if China were the sock, a whole bunch of people would misuse it. Because of China giving so many concessions to foreign powers, the people have had enough and started an enormous fucking sedition. It was so big that 11 nations had to subdue it. After quelling the rebellion, China's fate was sealed. Until it wasn't. After the period which the Chinese refer to as the period of shame, the now communist China has gotten its act together and is ready to take on the whole world. Unlike the other authoritarian states, China takes advantage of its economical might to exert power on the other big boys by starting trade wars and devaluating its currency, just to name a couple of ways. China's predatory monetary policy, which contributes to the so-called process of deindustrialization of many traditionally wealthy countries, is particularly menacing to the well-being of the rest of the world. Alongside that, China is accused of technology stealing and using companies such as Huawei for the sake of espionage. Also, China is known to oppress its religious and national minorities, especially in Tibet and I don't know if I pronounced it right, Xinjiang, even by measures such as throwing recalcitrant patriots into internment camps and classifying Islam believers as psychos. Besides that, China's activities in the South China Sea and sugar daddying North Korea are particularly menacing to America's interests. Farsi. Farsi, which is known as Persian as well, is the lingua franca of Iran. Although at first Iran was one of America's closest allies, everything changed after the Iranian Revolution, because of which now Iran is an anti-American theocracy. Iran is also known for its hateful approach towards Israel, America's greatest ally, which it threatened with nuclear annihilation time and again. Although after the signing of the Obama-era Iranian nuclear deal, which relaxed the sanctions against Iran in exchange for limiting its uranium enrichment to levels low enough to prevent it from developing nuclear weapons, the relationship between Iran and the rest of the world improving, Iran still remained an oppressive regime. Despite the lobbying of the whole Western world, the successor of Obama, Donald Trump, revoked the whole deal, which reignited the conflict. The president excused his actions by claiming that the Iranians did not respect the limits of uranium enrichment. How will this whole clusterfuck end? Nobody knows. But if you know Farsi, then you can definitely apply for a job at the CIA and have a part in determining the future. Urdu. Due to being spoken in northern India and Pakistan, Urdu is one of the most wanted languages at the CIA. Pakistan is one of the gravest enemies of India, a close friend of America. Since its creation by the British, it has already fought multiple wars with its bigger neighbor. While in the past their bickering was about the independence of Bangladesh or one state supporting terrorist cells in the other one, currently the main conflict is about the region of Kashmir. Both sides have claims on the northern province where Urdu is spoken. The worst thing is that unlike in the past conflicts, now both of the opposing sides have nuclear weapons at their disposal, and Pakistan's only ally, China, also pinches its nose into Kashmir, and it wants to get its share of the region too. So the stakes couldn't be higher. Pashto. Being the language spoken by a large chunk of the Afghan population, Pashto is one of the most looked after languages in the CIA. After America invaded Afghanistan as a part of the war on terror, the country was seriously destabilized. With a fragile peace, the CIA officers who know the language are a necessity to maintain the status quo. If you do not know any of the following languages, fear not. The CIA still hires language instructors who know any of the major languages. But a teacher isn't as badass as an actual agent, right? Also, regardless of what language you speak, if you are a CIA employee, you are eligible for a one-time up to 35 grand premium. If you liked this video, and honestly even if you didn't, please like and subscribe to my channel. If not, I will hunt you down. What are you waiting for? Get on with your life. You have better things to do than listening to my broken English and great accent. Right?